All right, Saurel, we're on.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Huddle. It is Thursday, the 3rd of April, and we are here once again, committed to you and the community at large. We'll take a minute of silence. It's not as usual, but we started this yesterday. And as the number of casualties from COVID-19 keep mounting, I think it's fitting for us to pause for a moment and pay tribute to everyone on the front line who's helping and combating the coronavirus, and also pay homage and send our prayers and our thoughts to the families who are struggling because they've lost loved ones. So let's take that minute now. Thank you for doing that. To you, to the ones suffering, to the ones in the middle of it, our prayers, our thoughts, and our love. Welcome to the Daily Huddle, where we're committed to you being equipped with everything you need to deal powerfully with the circumstances, make awesome decisions, and produce great results for yourself, your companies, your families, and your communities. Today, Giovanni, we have the awesome pleasure of having with us Dr. Carl Hanna. And before I introduce Dr. Carl, I want you to say a couple of words, Giovanni, to introduce yourself. I'm so happy and grateful to have you as my partner and my co-host on the Daily Huddle.
Good morning, Saurel. Good morning, Carl. Good morning, everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for being here. And I'm truly excited about always being in the Daily Huddle and be able to take on different conversations. And today's conversation really excites me. So thank you, Carl, for being here. And without further delay, go ahead, Saurel.
Well, Carl is a good friend of mine, so I'm delighted to have you here, Carl. Carl has well over a decade of management consulting experience, working with healthcare organizations with a focus on strategy and performance improvement. He had led large business transformation engagements, working with teams spread across different countries. He also worked closely with C-suite level executives to tackle organizational issues in order to drive and sustain change. So when the question is posed, how do you navigate the changing business landscape in today's environment? Carl Hanna, PhD, comes to us as an authority and an expert in change management. So Carl, you have a strong interest in emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, and their applications to the healthcare industry. So in this new era that's emerging with the impact of COVID-19, we are delighted to have you on the Daily Huddle to tackle with us how to navigate the changing business landscape as a small business owner. Dr. Carl Hanna, welcome to the Daily Huddle.
Well, thank you, Saurel. Thank you, Giovanni, for the kind introductions. And thank you, everybody else, for being on the call. So very excited to be here and to share a little bit of my strategy, or some of the strategies that I'm using as a startup, and what I've helped other organizations use or leverage, right, in order to be successful. It's a great day today. It's Friday and it's sunny here in Atlanta.
Lorna would have you believe it's Thursday, though.
Well, it's Thursday, almost Friday then. And so again, thank you for the opportunity. So I'll dive right in. I guess it's really my engineering mind, that comes into play. So I like to dive into the challenges and trying to find solutions. Changes that are sustainable. right? So I'll start with, there's always, as consultant, we always like to give the good and the bad news, right? And I'll start with the bad news, and we'll spend most of the time on the good news, right? So the bad news really, when it comes to disruption, when it comes to crisis, it's nothing new, right? Of course, the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic it's new to us, right? For this generation. But when you think about, it's a crisis, and we think about other crises, the housing market in 2008, and when we were in it, that was the biggest thing to us, right? As from a business standpoint, when you think about Blockbuster, right? And most of you will remember, and some of you would like, well, depending on your age, what is this, right? And I remember going to Blockbuster all the time, driving and trying to rush back to return those CDs before before the time was due, so I don't get overcharged. But where are they now?
A membership card.
I think I found an old video cassette. I used to have those VHS. I still have a video cassette from Blockbuster, right? So the business is totally gone, right? There were a few shops like a few years ago, and still in Canada, but it's gone, right? So those type of disruption and crisis it's part of the business landscape, right? So it may not be as global as, as the COVID-19 that they're experiencing, but depending on where you are, what type of business you are in, you'll experience it, at some point or the other, right? And it's a matter of how do you prepare yourself, right, in order to ride the wave and be successful. All right, so let's go now to the good news, as I promised, right? As a small business and also as a startup, you are more nimble, right? So there is it's easier, not easy, but it could be easier to pivot, right? And also you're closer to your customer, if you want to think about it, right? You're sometimes working side by side with some of the customers that you're helping. And so there's an opportunity there to hear what they have to say, to understand their changing need and address them, right? So there is, as a small business, as a startup, there is it's easier again to pivot. So now, it's good that I'm telling you the good news, but how do you go about implementing, right? What are some of the strategies that you can use now in this situation that we're in? So think about, the first, things that we're thinking about is cash flow, right? So you need, if you don't have it, and hopefully you do, have a cash flow plan, right? And what does that mean, right? So you're looking at, there are two components. There's money coming in, right? Are you getting your money? And there's money coming out, right? Are you spending your money? There's some coming in, your revenue, of course, is your customers. As a startup, I'll look at my investors, right? And it's an opportunity to talk to them, right? And help them understand how you're changing your business plan to accommodate the change in the market, right? And we'll talk about the business plan strategy a little bit in a couple minutes, right? So also, you probably heard that from a money in Congress just signed not a safety bill, but $2 trillion worth of aid assistance to large businesses, but also to small businesses. So I would start by going to SBA.gov, which is the Small Business Administration, right? And I was there actually yesterday. There they have listed different type of assistance that a small business can also use, and you're free to apply, right? And I believe today they're going to start reviewing applications. So you have between today and June 30th of this year right, to apply and take advantage of those assistance programs. And there's some very generous offer that I've seen. Again, you need to do your research there because every business is a bit different. But the interest rate, the loan deferment payment are quite advantageous. So it's something that for you to look at, right? There's also Invest Atlanta. This is more local. You can do a Google search and I can provide Saurel the link so you can share with everybody. So that's another entity that's local to Atlanta that's providing payroll assistance for small businesses, right? So another piece that I mentioned money coming in, and I said investors, small business loans, etc. But let's look at your money coming out, right? Money you're paying to your vendors, money you're paying to other organization that's helping you. So there's an opportunity to talk to those vendors. There's an opportunity to talk to your suppliers, right? And see to your payment, right? If you don't ask, you won't know, right? So it's an opportunity there to connect with your suppliers, you connect with your vendors, and see if there is any way you can you can defer those payments. And sometimes you'll be surprised. This week I had an opportunity to talk to one of my design shop, and they were willing to work with us, right? So again, you're gonna hear me say that a lot, communication. And so communicating with your vendors, your suppliers, it's crucial. And who knows, you may be surprised to see that they're more accommodating to those type of requests. Okay, so we talk about cash flow. Now let's go into your business itself, right? And there, you probably have heard, if you talk to consultants, we have a nice way of breaking down, when we look at the business, how to break down the components. We tend to look at your people, right? Your process or services, and the technology that supports everything. So let me start with the people, right? Your staff, your customers, and anybody that's connected to your business. It's not a time to close yourself, right? It's a time to communicate. It's a time to over communicate, right? So if we're talking with your staff, you need to talk to your staff, every day, to reassure them, to tell them how everything is, right? What are you doing? What are you exactly you're doing? What are your plans? And then keep them informed, right? The last thing you want to do is to close yourself, right, and not communicate often enough, and for people to start thinking, well, am I still gonna be employed tomorrow, right? Or what is gonna be the plan for next week, right? And as you're listening to all this news that are coming in, people are you're scared as the owner, but your staff is also very scared on where the business is going. And understand, when you're a small business too, I think your staff is almost an extension of your family, right? So you want to be able to communicate with them and talk to them like you'll do with your significant other. With your customers, it's also very important to communicate, right? And two things there, to tell them, hey, you're working towards a problem, but also understand, an opportunity to understand their need, because their need may have changed as well during this, right? So what are you doing to really take in that information and to tell your customers, hey, I'm listening and I want to address, I'm doing things that are a bit different to address your needs that may have changed. So you want to stay close to your customers, right? So this is really people piece. I said I'm going to talk about three things: people, process, and technology. So let's go into the process. And so the process piece, your services piece. What I like to do is we're looking at your book, we're looking at your business and the services that you provide, right? And you have to go into a process of triaging. Let's look at your must-have services, right? And the nice-to-have services, right? Your must-have is, what you need to satisfy, what you need to do to satisfy your customer needs, right? And some of the nice-to-have could be like, well, if I don't provide it, will I lose the customer? Right? And so that's how communicating again with your customers is so important, right? To help you figure out what's your nice to have in this time of crisis and what's your must have in this time of crisis, right? And in the line of work I do with my healthcare clients, which are in a much larger organization, it's always like, what are you want to be, I mean, most healthcare organization wants to be everything for everybody. So the work that we do is like, well, hold on a second, you can't be everything to everybody, right? What are your core strengths, right? And focus on that, and forego some of the things that are not essential. When you forego those things, those nice to have in this time, that release some of maybe some cash that you were spending on that in that area to really focus and enhance what you're referring as a must-have, right? So it's quite important to go through that triage exercise, working closely with your staff, working closely with your customers to figure out what's your must-have and your nice to have. So the last piece I want to focus on is really the technology piece, right? How you can leverage, look at how you can leverage technology, right, to enhance your must-have, right, and to be closer to your customers. For example, I was, helping a physician, to a friend of mine about, their strategy now to stay connected with their patient population. And he's the type, is more, old-fashioned. He wants everybody to come in. He wants to touch the patient. But with this situation now, it's quite impossible. So we're looking at, well, you can leverage telehealth. You can leverage telemedicine and those cameras now to provide and to still stay close to your customer and to provide, to some extent, services, right? To that patient, right? Do consultation services. There's a plastic surgeon yesterday who was really, continue seeing patient for surgeries that is planning to schedule at the end of the year, right? So there's still businesses going on, and there's still businesses that are looking at using technology, right, to enhance and stay connected to their customers. So I know we probably have 12 minutes, so I'll stop there. But again, as a small business, there's an opportunity there to come out of this and be stronger, stronger business, staying closer to your customers, really address the needs, that they have.
That is awesome. Dr. Carl Hanna, thank you so much. As you were speaking about the people, something came to my attention. A number of our people in our constituency are small businesses that are just starting up. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, they don't have staff members to talk to on a daily basis, or clients or customers. Yet I'm thinking maybe there's some way that what you're speaking of applies to them regarding their prospective clients. What would you say to small businesses who are just starting out, or people who are self-employed and looking to generate more business, even in these circumstances?
Mm-hmm. And it goes back, yeah, sure. And it goes back to communication and really, being proactive and reaching out to people. right? You'll be surprised, that folks are more open now, right? It's like while you're home, you're kind of have more time and on very not distracted as much, right? And also looking for opportunities to collaborate to change the business. So as a small, and my situation, as we're looking at investors and trying to bring people in, right? We are very small as well, right? And it's a time to continue that conversation, and reaching out to your network. And those networks sometimes comes in your future client. And so it's an opportunity to reach back to your network, stay connected more than ever, right? And talk about your business proposition and hear what your customers or what people are saying. And there's an opportunity there to take that in and change your messaging, right? And be like, well, I could do this over the web as well, right? And I think one of the videos I saw last week from the Daily Huddle was, the speaker was suggesting, hey, you could, take that business and maybe teach someone else, right? And be in your knowledge and become a teacher, right? A teacher and an instructor, right? And it could be another source of revenue, right? And so I'll stop there.
Yeah, and that's awesome, because what I'm thinking is that for many people, there may be the tendency to want to be appropriate and sensitive in these circumstances, and say, you know what, nowadays people are swamped and dealing with the impact of COVID-19. This is not the time for me to be soliciting business to anyone. And I'm thinking that would be disastrous. So if I'm hearing you correctly, you could be sensitive and do business at the same time.
No, for sure, for sure. I mean, it's like, how do you approach that person, right? And you have to approach it from a human talking to a human, right? So, don't send a quick text and say, hey, I'm selling this. But why don't you inquire about how they're doing, right? Is there anything you can do to help them, right? And sometimes it's a conversation to be like, hey, we're all struggling, right? We're all in this together, and they can turn and say, hey, how can I help you, right? So instead of just going to a sales mode, and maybe that's a lesson learned from this pandemic, and so, hey, this is what I have to sell you, right? But inquire, go at the human level and inquire how they're doing, right? What can you do, right? And how you can connect others in your network to them. That so you never know. So I'm saying is how you approach those conversations. Let's not, there's a human, there's a person at the end of this, right? And too often, especially, I've worked in many different countries, and especially here, it's really about the transaction, right? Hey, I have something to sell you. You need something from me, and that's it. I don't care if I ever see you again, right? Or if I see you, hopefully to buy more from me, right? But we forget, like, if you're from, I've worked in Ghana in Africa, right? It's really about the relationship, right? It's really building the relationship, having that connection. And having that, you can still talk to your friend if you're going through a rough patch. And if you keep that human element, you can go back to those customers or potential customers and have the conversation. Hey, I'm thinking about this, how can I help you?
Awesome, awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is your turn now to ask any questions you may have. Dr. Hanna is very generous, and so the floor is yours. Giovanni, any questions on your end?
I was taking a lot of notes. This really has been a real breath of fresh air for me, in the way in which you allowed us to look at reevaluating, because this is also a time for reevaluating. And so and it's like the perfect time to reevaluate my relationship with people, my relationship with processes, and my relationship with the technology, right? And also what I am learning from all this experience and also being with you is that it has allowed me to grow as a human being in the sense of, I didn't prepare for this. I didn't quite prepare for this, and whatever I did to prepare for this was very accidentally rather than intentional, right? Like I have maybe my hands on 4 different revenues, right? And they're all down. They're absolutely all down. However, that was really accidentally. That was like the entrepreneur in me going at it, like, yay, let's just touch different industries, right? So I love the thing. Everything you were creating for me to reevaluate. And the other thing that that I got that I'm also getting from this is not more like a question, but something I'm seeing from this conversation is some of my clients are actually still in business. They're still in business. They're an essential business. They're still in business, and they need help. They need a lot of help. They're hiring, right? One of my clients is the owner of 8 little supermarkets, the little markets. So they need help. And then some of my clients are not, their sales are down by 50%, 60%. Now, for myself, it's like, I want to be in touch with all of them. And it's not like I want to give my service for free, but I want to see how can I help you now? And because this will pass too, right?
Yes.
So what I'm getting from your conversation here, and it's not a question, it's like, I want to get in the heads and the minds of everybody I can touch in the event to either help you right now at the degree I can, support you, and then also keep in mind, I want to be in your radar when this also passes through.
Yeah.
So it was like you were giving us a really awesome strategy opportunity, or reevaluating opportunity, level-headed for the circumstances that we're in. Yeah. So okay, maybe I do have a question, but I'm going to stop now and I'm going to be quiet and see if somebody has a question.
Is there a question in the chat? I see a couple of. Don't know if I can check it.
Not yet. But Karina, did you have a question?
I don't, maybe similar to you, Gio, like listening to what you're saying and assessing what I'm up to. And I think I have 3 different sources of income. I'm an artist. And my 3 sources of income are I teach classes and workshops at my studio, and that's about 1/3 of my income. And then I make work just of the volition of making it, and I show that in galleries and museums, and then that sells or it doesn't sell. And then I have commissions with people, and commissions is the part that's kind of the highest of my income. And so I love listening to everything you had to say. And something that I've come to myself over the last week is being in touch with people and like the space of gratitude. So with my students, right, I would call that my lowest hanging fruit of what my income is. I had to postpone a lot of workshops and classes, and I myself was so sick and tired of seeing canceled. And so I was really careful with the words. And so something I've come up with is I'm giving a gift to all of the students that happily transferred. A couple of them asked for their money back, right? They just said, oh, I'm not willing to transfer to June and July.
Yeah.
And so my plan is I make these little copper unbreakable hearts. And so I'm going to, and I love writing thank you notes to people, right? And when I get busy in my business, I don't write the thank you notes. And so my plan, right, is to go through my list of who purchased work from me this year.
Yeah.
And I might even stretch further than this year, right? Than this last year. It's only February, right? April. And so that's kind of my plan. But in listening to you, I thought, well, I could also just call people up and just say, hey, what's happening? Like I got in touch with them. Oh, and the other thing with my classes, I've been thinking about making some videos.
Yes.
right? So that I can teach online. Now I teach welding and blacksmithing, and so it's a very hands-on, and there's no way to be 6 feet apart. You can't even be 3 feet apart. You're right next to that person, right? So, you know, I reached out to one of my students and said, and she's taken 7 of my workshops. These are $600 a piece, and she's, you know, 7, almost 8 of these workshops. She's dedicated. So she was the first person I reached out to, and I said, listen, what would you, you know, I'm getting, and I took a whole webinar the other day on teaching art classes, you know, so I'm preparing myself for this. I got a quote from a videographer, and it was higher than I feel like spending right this minute.
Yeah.
So, so I'm listening to you, and I'm thinking, like, what's missing for me is, like, I want to get into action, right? And in listening to you, I see I need to go back and look at my process and my people a little bit closer. So I'm like an action person. And what I've been doing is mulling everything over. I've been coming to these daily huddles, and I get a little juice of something or other. So I don't know what my question is exactly, but I guess maybe in the assessing part, there was something you said, the people, process, and I love what you talk about, the communication,
technology.
right? We're so used to sending emails now, and so it's really like, pick up the phone, right?
No, for sure. I mean, you know, when you said there, you're thinking about doing some videos, right? There, I mean, you know, with our phone now, right? There's opportunity. Of course, you know, welding is very specialized. It may need some nice angle and things like that. But is there anything you can do that's maybe less complex, right? That that you can shoot, right? That enables you to stay in touch with your customer base, right? And say, hey, I'm here, right? Coming to you soon, or things like that. Or do you know, or quick facts about welding, if right? Where they still can see your face, they still know that you're working, you know, you're excited, you're thinking about it, thinking about new ways of doing things, and it could be an opportunity there, right? Low cost, right? To really stay connected with your audience. So next time you pick up the phone or send an email, say, hey, this is what I've been doing, right? Keep your 101 for welding or things like that.
Yeah, I was thinking actually today about doing like a Facebook Live, you know, and I ordered, I'm also really dedicated to like supporting my other small businesses, right? So I bought some of these very expensive, nice salts from this friend of mine, from Bella Cucina, and she does these great cooking videos, and I love her cooking videos. And so I called her up and I was like, I want to get some of those salts. She made popcorn, you know, and she does all these, you know, wonderful food, and she has these special salts, you know, like $15 a little thing of salt, the herbs and everything in it. And so I really like the idea of supporting the other small businesses that are out there. So she came over and we took all these pictures. I've got to post them today, but I got inspired and I made this ridiculous Facebook Live cooking video last night because I was just like, I like cooking food and having people over, and I can't do that right now.
Thank you very much.
And I got inspired just to have fun. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Karina, thank you for the interaction. Carl, thank you for being so generous. It's 33 after, and the way we end the Daily Huddle every day is we give our special guest the opportunity to have a last word. So if these are your last words, Carl, what do you want to say to your audience?
Well, I was gonna say it's Friday, but I'll say, you know, it's a you know, it's a time to reassess your business, right? It's an opportunity to be really focused and refocus yourself, right? And look at every aspect of your business and come out of this, you know, stronger, right? And as I mentioned, the good news I mentioned at the very beginning, as a small business, as a startup, you're in a unique situation where you can pivot, right, quicker than if you were a massive organization. So the future, I think, is still bright, right? And it's a matter of, you know, looking into yourself, looking into your business, and really move in some of these different, you know, component or pieces that I mentioned: your people, your business, your process, and also your technology.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, the Daily Huddle is nothing without the people watching, and nothing without our special expert guests. So thank you for your generosity. To all of you watching, thank you for your attention and your time. And to the rest of the world, thank you for making the Daily Huddle possible with your listening. Giovanni, thank you.
Thank
Karina,
you.
thank you. Any last words, Giovanni?
No last words other than have a great weekend.
And see you on the Daily Huddle on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Until then, folks.
Until
Bye-bye.
then, cheers.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Mhm.